Today on the show, we're going to talk about why Bray Wyatt should be added back into WWE 2K22. And we're going to talk about the other side where 2K probably won't do this and the reasons why. Let's get into it right now. If you followed along 2K22's story throughout this last year, you would know that Bray Wyatt was set up to be in the game, but because he was released by WWE last year, they removed him from the game. They also removed an embedded story that was set up ready for My Rise, where we were going to see the likes of Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Alexa Bliss, this huge story that was going to be involved with your created superstar going through the My Rise mode. But we didn't get any of that. We got Bray Wyatt and The Fiend removed. We didn't get the My Rise story. And now, Bray Wyatt is back in WWE. So here's why 2K should add Bray Wyatt back into the game. Very easily, it's because he's already there. Bray Wyatt's renders, his entrance, his commentary, the ring announcer, the crowd signs. It's all there. We know this because of community creations. All we need is the Titantron and the music and boom, we're ready to go. And not only should they add him back in because it's just all of the assets are sitting there, but they should also do this because it's great fan service to their community. Now hang on, because you're going to say, yo, well, Matt, they would never do anything good for their fans and their players. 2K doesn't care, da-da-da-da-da. We'll get to all of that. We'll talk about the bad and the why they won't do and all of that in just a second. But if 2K cared, if WWE Games really wanted to do some goodwill, good moves to their community, to their fan base, you got huge momentum for WWE, getting record-breaking views and everything on their YouTube channel for Bray Wyatt's return. Fans love it. Fans have been wanting to have The Fiend and Bray Wyatt back in the game or just in the game made available. He's hugely popular. If you're 2K, you should just flip the switch and let it happen. Put him back in the game, make him available. You will win over so many fans and so much of your audience and Flaps fans, and you potentially get even more sales out of the game at the end of its life cycle. Because with 2K23 coming out in presumably March of 2023, 2K22, for all intents and purposes, is done. It's a wrap. And if you wanted to squeeze a little bit more revenue out of the existing game, and if you're 2K, you put Bray Wyatt back into the game, and then fans that didn't want to pick up the game might actually turn around and buy it. And now that it's discounted everywhere, they would be able to get Season Pass, the NWO, and previously unreleased Bray Wyatt into this year's game. You then make him ready to go for 2K23. You put a big focus around him again. Maybe you could even recycle the My Rise storyline that was scrapped. That would alleviate a lot of work from the devs, in my opinion. And speaking of revenue and finances, and I know nothing. I know nothing. I'm just an idiot here with the camera. But logic would dictate that if you have something like a Bray Wyatt character, you could monetize this thing and make more money off of it for the existing franchise and the existing game that you have. What you could do if 2K really wanted to squeeze it from a corporate side and just squeeze every last little penny out of people, you could charge fans $1.99, $2.99, $4.99 for a Bray Wyatt. Let me know in the comments. If you had to, would you pay for it if it became available this year? I think a lot of us would say, no, that's ridiculous. I would never pay for it. How dare they? And I agree, how dare they? But in this made up scenario, if they did put it out there for say $2.99 or $4.99, would you do it? I know I would. Assuming I'm going to get Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, his original attire, like everything, the whole package, I would do that. Because I look at other franchises and other big games like Fortnite, for example, which comes out with seasons, which comes out with new skins, and players dump gobs of money all the time into it just to get a new skin, just to get a John Cena skin. They pay that money. I think there's an audience that would be willing to do it if I was getting the character in the game. But if you wanted to do the really cool thing, you just make it free, right, for fans. But now, here's the other side of the coin. Here's what would be the more likely scenario in all of this. And we're talking, of course, about MyFaction. Digital card game that 2K has just been pumping out every single month and putting it in front of fans and giving us a little patch, and they give us a little bit of a tickle, don't they? And then all we find out is that we get a 1.8 gigabyte patch or a 40 gigabyte patch on PC, and it turns out to just be MyFaction card updates with no significant changes, no fixes to the core game itself. What I can see being likely is 2K in this whole scenario we're building out, they would just drop a MyFaction pack for Bray Wyatt. I can see them releasing a level 97, 98 card of Bray Wyatt, a Fiend card, because they would have already had all of this baked and ready to go. My assumption, those MyFaction cards of Bray Wyatt are already done because he was going to be in the game already. What's sad too is that WWE Supercard, the mobile game, likely is going to get a Bray Wyatt updated card released very soon, because I know they've done that with even Cody Rhodes before, but we don't get it on the 2K side. And I think because 2K has been pushing MyFaction so much since the end of the DLC run in September, they are very likely to push this out, because we are still seeing cards coming out, and then we're digging through, and community members are digging through and finding the assets, and then getting these community creations built for all of us, and we're getting these CAWs in the game based off the MyFaction attires and all this stuff. But the problem here is that with this being a more likely scenario, this would really piss off fans. We already see an uproar online, and this is probably the minority. We are the loudest people of the group and the smallest group of people, but MyFaction is not well received by players. Fans don't like that DX and the Horsewomen and all of these other attires and packs and so on and creations are all locked behind a paywall, and that they are only playable within this specific mode that doesn't have a lot of depth to it. If the mode was a banger, people would be less upset. If the mode would allow us to take those attires, take DX and put it into our base game and exhibition, fans would be so happy, but we're not getting that. And why I would worry too is that 2K would see an opportunity to get Bray Wyatt in the game, but put him behind MyFaction and get players to buy MyFaction card packs instead of just making it available in the core game. Then they would do what would be likely as well. They put him in 2K23 as a full playable character, where we would pay for him in 2K22 and then we would get him for free in 2K23. And that would upset the fans too. But a dangerous precedent can be set though from 2K's perspective. From the fan side, giving us Bray Wyatt in this year's game would be goodwill and good fan service, like I said. But the danger from 2K's perspective, in my opinion, is that if you have Bray Wyatt and you add him back into this year's game, fans will go ballistic and praise 2K for giving us something we've been asking for and giving us something that we wanted in the game. But I think fans would very quickly turn around and say, okay, release DX, give me the Horsewomen, all of the MyFaction attires you've locked, your Seth Rollins, your Becky Lynch, and so on. Give us all of that in the game. You did it for Bray Wyatt, why aren't you doing it for D-Generation X? And by doing that and crossing that line, 2K puts themselves in a tricky position of, if we do it for one, then we probably should do it for all. And I agree they should. But from the business side, I think that puts them in a very delicate and bad position, where if they release Bray, give it to fans for free, and then they feel like they gotta do it for the rest of them too, even though they already set it all up to say it's gonna be behind MyFaction. And the last point I'll make on this topic today, everybody, is looking at 2K23, one thing that I would be worried and concerned about because of what has happened with MyFactions in 2K22 is we get the current modern new version of Bray Wyatt, whatever he will turn out to be on WWE programming. We get that version of Bray in next year's game, and we're going to be really cool and happy about it. But I really do worry that what we will see is a continuation of MyFaction to next year's title. They put The Fiend, they put the original Bray Wyatt in, they put Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, they put all of those versions of him locked behind the MyFaction paywall, and I see that as a very dangerous and slippery slope by 2K. But what do you think about Bray Wyatt? Will he be in 2K22? And what do you think 2K's approach should be with all of this? Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the show, click right here. More 2K22 coverage coming at you. See ya!